Hello and welcome to another episode of Interviews with Hyperpolyglots at HYPIA. It is my pleasure as Dr. Usman Chohan, president of HYPIA, to have one of our oldest members, certainly one of the more fascinating ones, Maher Akil, who is part Lebanese, part Chinese, resides in Hong Kong, but has been to some of the places that I find absolutely fascinating. And I guess we'll cover that soon enough. Welcome, Maher.
Thank you for having me, Usman. Very excited to be here.
The pleasure is all mine. Now, let's start with the fact that you are biracial and you have grown up with the dichotomy of two different cultures. How fascinating is that? Tell us about it.
Well, the funny thing is I didn't realize it was fascinating until people told me it was fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, that's normal because I grew up in this normalcy in which is like people say, oh, you're the only Chinese Arab I know. I'm like, I know three, my brothers and my sisters. So to me, it was a normal. It became fascinating when people started reacting. So when I speak to my mom in Chinese, my Lebanese friends will be like, whoa. And the same thing when I speak to one in China. So that's when the fascination started. I didn't even know it was special or different until I was maybe 15 years old. So before that, it was just normal for us to have hummus next to dim sum. It was just a Wednesday night for us.
Okay, I still think that there's something, the dynamics of being a biracial person in the modern world it's always a distinct experience. I've read into the literature a lot, but for you it's something visceral. It is normal. You understand it well, but it certainly must have been of some assistance to you as you traveled around the world. So tell us about your travels and where you have resided particularly.
So I was born and raised in Hong Kong, and studying in Hong Kong, it means you had to study Cantonese, Mandarin, and English. So by then, as long as I can remember, we always had to study three languages. And when I was 9 years old, we moved to Lebanon. And in Lebanon, it's the same thing in Hong Kong, but now you have to study French, English, and Arabic. So in terms of living in those places, you get to learn the languages right away. And with French, I never got into it too much. I was never a fan. So if you look at the languages that I speak, French is not one of them. But it did build the foundation for learning Spanish and Portuguese. Yes.
And the countries that you've resided in, for example, I've always been fascinated by a visit to Paraguay, never been, even though I lived in Buenos Aires, and then there was Angola. So as a Lusophone, a Portuguese speaker, I always wanted to see countries beyond Brazil or Portugal, Angola being fascinating. What was it like being in these two countries, Paraguay and Angola?
So I moved to Paraguay when I was around 22, right after. So I went to the States when I was 18, and at 22, I left the States and I went to Paraguay. I went to the border city called Ciudad del Este, which is on a place they call the Tres Fronteras, which means the three fronts. So it was Paraguay, Argentina, and Brazil. And I had a business going on there. And Paraguay is, especially Ciudad del Este, it was, when they say that it's a crazy city, I would say it's a crazy city. And a lot of different characters, from good and bad. Paraguay was really nice. And that was when I was exposed to Spanish and Portuguese, because in my business at that time, my clients were Portuguese speaking Brazilians. My team was Spanish and Guarani speaking Paraguayan. I was buying products from China, so I spoke Cantonese and Mandarin, and I was buying products from Miami, so I was speaking English. And some of my clients were also Arabs that resided in Brazil side. So on a daily, I would speak around 6 languages. I would use all 6 languages on the daily, which again, at that time, it wasn't too crazy because my brother does it too. And we would just speak with the clients. And after that, I had an opportunity to go to Angola. Angola is where I really got my first culture shock, I would say. It's a beautiful country, beautiful, great people. I love the people there. I mean, I love the people everywhere I go, but Angola left an impression on me. But the culture shock was developing country. So a lot of infrastructures are not there. It means you don't get water, you don't get electricity all the time. And to see how people live in that situation was really fascinating. And it helped me grow as a person because I always took electricity for granted. I mean, you never look at a light bulb and like, oh my God, I appreciate this. And after living in Angola, you do. You appreciate clean water. So, and you know, speaking Portuguese really helps me to blend in over there. And yeah, Angola, I would say it's the most memorable place that I've lived, even though I've just lived there for like around 2.5. Then now I'm back in Hong Kong. I'm back in Hong Kong, and you know, a new appreciation for life, a new appreciation for the little things in life. After living in Angola, I realized how lucky I am, and it humbles you. That you know, when people ask me what do you take away from living in Angola, I say it humbles you and it makes you become more grateful. It's that's a right thing from there.
Yeah, that's wonderful, because the culture shock and the economic shocks of being in places that are so disparate can sometimes be a negative experience, but taking it in the stride that you do, it's extremely positive. It's also a reflection of the hyperpolyglot spirit. There's much less judgmentalism and far larger an embrace of something that is different, a society that is different. The fact that you would be working, let's talk Paraguay again, the fact that you would be working daily in 6 different languages, it's a practitioner experience, not bookwormy, it's not didactic, it is the praxis of polyglotism. And I think that's very beautiful. It was a commerçant context. There's clients, there's material, there's people, there's a team. And I think that this economic life of hyperpolyglots is best exemplified by you. So talk more about the sort of dynamics that work when you deal with people who are so different on a daily basis.
So it's really, being a hyperpolyglot is you don't just learn the language. I tell people all the time, you learn the culture.
Yeah.
It's no use to learn a language, really, if you don't know the culture. Or else you can be replaced by a Google translator. The fact that if I'm sitting with a Chinese person that I can crack a joke and make him laugh, and that same joke would not work to an Arab or to a Brazilian. So I think that when you speak about dynamics, it's really understanding each other's
Cultures, yes.
What is appropriate, what is not appropriate, what should you do? My roots, Lebanese and Chinese, what is okay for one, what is not okay for the other. And not just in cultures as well, you dive even deeper, you have the cultures that are stemming from religion. My mom is a Buddhist, my dad is a Shia Muslim. I went to a Christian school. My best friend is Jewish. So it's like a mix of everything, and you really need to understand how each of them functions so you don't really offend anybody, but at the same time you appreciate those different cultures. And one of the first things that I did, I would say intentionally, to learn the culture behind a language was listening to their music and reading their lyrics. I would read their lyrics and try to understand, because music is the purest form of expression. You know, I remember reading a story, like one of the first songs ever written were by slaves while they were being worked, you know, really hard, and they made music that expressed how they felt to cheer themselves up. And I think music is the purest form of diving into a culture. Going through, like Angola, you have beautiful Afro music, and you can hear the beats and the rhythm. It's very strong. It's very it awakens the soul. Earlier cultural shock. In Angola, when a person dies, they dance. They dress white, and they sing and they dance because everything is a celebration to them in a good way. So I would say the dynamics of it is really understanding the cultures, understanding the religion, understanding their music, their pop culture, and knowing when to use what kind of references, what references they would understand. So there's a lot of dynamics in there, and I can dive really and dissect it, but you know, I don't want to spend too much of your time on this.
Oh, well, you certainly are welcome to, because I think that this is the sort of insight that you can share with few people who would really nod, and you know, you're preaching to the choir. I totally understand. I've done it myself.
Yeah.
And I'm fascinated to hear it, not just because it, you know, it echoes what I've experienced in my life, but because it is different places, different objectives, different age, different periods in your life. But to hear the resonance among those experiences is very powerful. So when we talk about different cultures and different languages, substrate being their music, it certainly resonates with me. But I've also found that there's other, what people now call the intersectionality. So there's many different ways to intersect and break out the human experience. So one is the culture, one is the language. There's a lot of overlap. Then there's the religion, which you alluded to. It's true. Then there's also the dynamics of social class. So when you're dealing in a society that is highly unequal, like Angola, Paraguay itself, perhaps even now Hong Kong to an extent, for the wrong reasons. The dealing with social class is also a very big part of how you communicate. The same is true for gender. It might be stronger in some languages than others, but gender is also a big one. So when you look at all of these intersectionalities, in addition to the culture, the language, and the religion, what other intersections did you find really struck you in certain places?
Well, see, I think by looking at me, you can see I'm a big guy, so I'm really into food. You know,
well, you look healthy
like...
and in proportion. I would not necessarily big. You look in proportion. You look good. You look good.
But thank you. So I really look at the food aspect as well, which is something I wanted to mention. I think food is, I really dive into it and I understand where they're coming from. You can see their struggles, because there are certain foods that only a certain class of people will eat.
Sure.
So when you look at a famous Mexican stew, menudo, which is made from tripes and innards, it tells a story of how they were living, what they needed to use to strive. Whereas you look at certain cultures, you know, they are able to eat fish and only the chicken breast, only certain parts, you know, the consciously, okay, they and historically they were doing well. Whereas some cultures historically they were suffering. That's why you have, you know, certain recipes that you're like, okay, but not a lot of people would understand why. Okay, why did they eat that? But I really dove into it and I really wanted to understand, oh, they eat that because of this historical context. You know, they eat this because they went through this. So that's another dynamic That, yeah,
Very observant. It's very observant. There is a strong literature on this in the African American context with soul food, for example, which was tripes and innards and
yes,
stuff because they got the second cuts or the last cuts of the meal after the slave owner ate, that sort of thing.
exactly.
It's very true. It resonates across these inequalities. It's a profound observation. Um, so I'm a big fan of food. It's not the first thing that comes to my mind, so I'm glad you raised it. But tell me about your favorite cuisine from every culture that you've bonded with, like the Cantonese culture, the Mandarin, the
Oh,
Lebanese. Let's get you hungry because you're in the office. Let's get started.
well, the problem is not going to be hungry. The problem is my friends from all over the world is going to be like, how do you say that our food is not the best when
Oh, but your favorite within each
uh,
culture. So we're not putting preferences among the cultures, just within the cultures, to be fair to them.
here's the thing. I will tell you how I will break it down because I think every culture has good ways of dealing with certain ingredients. So, for example, Lebanon is very Mediterranean. Um, we have had many interactions with the Ottoman Empire, with the Crusades, with everybody, you know. So we took and we gave, and because of our climates, we're able to grow different types of vegetables. So, for example, like a famous Lebanese salad called the tabbouleh.
Oh, yes.
Everywhere, everybody knows it. Everybody knows it. Everybody, it's one of our famous exports. The Lebanese hummus. Falafel. It goes all over the world,
Yes.
and it's everywhere you go. You speak of that, and they know it.
Mm.
And but then you look at something like from Latin America. If I go to Brazil, their barbecue.
Mm.
I don't think any country can compare when you talk about pure cuts of meat
Mm.
that goes into a barbecue. I think Brazilians and Argentinians, they are the king
Mm.
of just pure sea salt, nothing else. They don't need to put anything. They know
That's
how to
true.
do it. The funny thing is they have a cut called the picanha,
Mm.
which some calls it the sirloin cap, or some
Mm.
calls it the rump cap.
Mm.
And other places, they don't have that cut. You have to specifically order it with the cap, so it comes with the fat. And here in Hong Kong, I need to talk to my Brazilian friends. I need to talk to my Brazilian hookups. Look, hook
Mm.
me up with some picanha.
Mm.
So with them, there is that. Then you go to somewhere like in China, they have different cuisines. So being from Hong Kong, we are used to the Cantonese cuisine, which we call Guangdong Choi, which is the Canton, the Guangdong style of cooking. And because Guangdong historically they were very rich
Mm.
and everything was in abundance,
Mm.
and even during the British colony, it was in abundance. The richest people flocked to here,
Mm.
and that created a need for really good food.
Mm.
That created a need. Competition will always make you better. And I
Yes.
think the competition in Hong Kong made the food scene here really crazy.
Mm-hmm. Delicious.
And I tell people, if you want to see good food, just go to it's so high. It's so high, like in Hong Kong.
Mm-hmm.
If you make any food that is slightly subpar, you're going to close down. You're not going to be able to pay your rent.
Right.
Yeah. So I think that without offending any of my cultural friends, that kind of covers how I feel about it.
I think that's fascinating. In terms of connectivity, so Hong Kong is a truly alpha city in terms of its connectivity. You got people from all over coming in and out. But do you find that do you struggle to connect with people that you or from cultures that you have been with, or are there cultures that you're interested that are present in Hong Kong that you'd like to connect with more? What's going on there?
I really don't. I wish I could give you a story where I struggle to connect. I am somewhat of a social butterfly.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I do not have problem connecting with people from places I know, or even from if we go back to food, food is a great way to connect people. You want to divide people, you talk about religion and politics. You want to join people, you talk about food. As simple as that. And I always have a story. If I know where you're from, I would say that to be honest. Now I'm in. People are gonna watch this. I use that somewhat to connect with people. And for example, I'll give you a very, very tiny example. If I'm meeting somebody and I know that person is from the Philippines, I would have a story about balut. So balut, I don't know if you know, is this fertilized duck egg. And my ex-girlfriend wanted me to eat it. And we had a big fight that I didn't want to eat it. And that story, I almost always use it when I really want to meet that person. Like, that's a big shot guy, I need to talk to him. I was like, oh yeah. Oh, by the way, this is what happened to my ex. You made me, and it always gets a laugh because they know balut is one of those things
Acquired taste.
It's very acquired taste.
Yes.
And they understand why I would have a hard time eating it. But that is a perfect example of understanding a certain culture, knowing how to connect with them, and knowing what stories to tell that they would connect in a certain way. If I go to a Lebanese guy and I tell them I don't like tabbouleh, you're done. He'll cut you off.
Game over.
He will block you. That's it. It's finished. So it really, it's really, yeah. Or you cannot go to a Lebanese guy and tell him, I have some pumpkin seed flavored hummus. To them, hummus is classic. So
Yeah.
every nationality or every culture, they have things that you can joke about, and I use that to my advantage because I'm a salesperson. This is what we do.
Yes, that's true. Do you find that your polyglotism has been an advantage in such a profession where engaging the subject is so important, getting them on your side to conclude the sale? Polyglotism is an advantage, or is it that sales is a profession that has taught you to embrace? So which is the causality? Which way does it work, or both ways?
That's a good question. So which made me what? I would say that a lot of salesperson, they are born to be salesperson because you have to sell yourself.
Yes.
Not in a bad way, but you have to sell yourself. Like, somebody has to like you. Say. So the first thing is really to sell yourself. Once you sell yourself, you can sell anything. Now, I think that I learned how to use the hyper polyglot trade in sales. For example, if I am in China, which I deal with China a lot, China likes, I sell luxury items, and China having a bad reputation of making subpar products for so long, it's ingrained even in some of its own people. So when they buy certain products, they want it to be imported. They want it to be, so they have that connection, like imported from Europe or imported from somewhere. It's more luxurious. I know that it's going to be higher quality. And when I'm doing that sales, I lean toward being less Chinese. If you get my drift, I am more, all of a sudden now I'm less Chinese, because the less Chinese I am, the more they relate me to the product they are buying. But I have certain situations where, well, I don't want to get too political, and I will not, but I think this is something that people can relate to me. I somewhat joke about it. When I was going to the States, being half Lebanese, half Chinese, and right after phobia, there's Arabophobia. And I always joke, at immigration, I'm 100% Chinese. You know, I'm 100% Chinese. And you know, I don't speak a lick of Arabic, you know, at that time. You know, just let me go through immigration. I don't want any random searches. And that was right after 9/11. But the funny thing is now
yes.
now I'm 100% Lebanese when I go through the States. I don't have COVID. I don't have a problem with you guys. You know, so it's you need to know how to be a chameleon. And yeah, I would say that is one of the best examples of how you need to know when to switch. And yeah, now there's less, you know, Islamophobia at the immigration in the States. I can use my Lebanese side. Yeah, Lebanese are not, you know, sometimes Lebanese are Arab, sometimes we're Mediterranean. Sometimes it really depends on the subject that we're speaking about.
Oh,
So
this
you
is
have
brilliant.
to be very flexible.
This is brilliant because this is the struggle of being somebody with multiple identities in a hostile world. Those hostilities were not caused by you. You didn't start anything, but the fact is you have to navigate them carefully, and you do in like we're young guys, we're young people, but we see the shifting tides. 9/11 was a different time, a tough time, and now another group of people is going to be persecuted in the same manner, and it's going to be a tough time for them. In your case, it's for me and for me. It's just two different parts of you, and that is a very tricky thing. Now, this leads to the tough question. You don't want to be political. You don't have to, but it's
Yes.
more of the psychology of the subject navigating the world. What do you feel is the verdict on the global man or globalization? You are a global person going in the next 20 years. How is it going to be? Is it going to be easier than before, harder, or about the same?
Well, I think the best global person is you cannot see him. He does not stand out. That's what I think is the highest level of being a global person. It means, and I say that to my friends a lot of times, when they talk to me, let's say I'm in Lebanon, right? I'm speaking to them in Arabic and we're having Lebanese jokes and we're singing Lebanese songs. It doesn't occur to them that I'm Chinese. Mm-hmm. And when I'm in Hong Kong, I'm speaking Cantonese and I'm making Chinese references. I'm singing karaoke, mm-hmm. you know, without looking at the lyrics with Chinese songs. It doesn't occur to them I'm not Chinese. And when I'm in the States, I think it was my first week in the States, because I grew up in the hip hop culture. I grew up, you know, watching American shows, so I was able to pick up the accent for some reason. And when I was in the States, when I was in Michigan, I had local people thinking that I'm from southern part of the States. Mm-hmm. And what that means is that, and when I was in Brazil, Brazilians thought I was Brazilian because of my looks and the way I talked. I went to work in shorts, wearing, you know, Havaianas, and I know the references. And that to me is what really a global man is being a chameleon. A good chameleon, the best chameleon is the one you cannot see. Mm-hmm. The one that's hiding. What's the best ninja is the one you cannot see, right? If you can see a ninja over there that can blend in anywhere without standing out. The only place I couldn't blend in was Angola. And it's because of obvious reason, I am not Black and I am standing out over there. But other than that, most of the places that I've been to, I'm able to blend in. And I think if you ask what would be the global man, and if it was easier or is it more apparent, I wouldn't know. I wouldn't know because the best ones we never really found out who they are. Except now with your organization, you're going to expose all of us. You're going to expose.
Yes. Okay. I know all the ninjas.
You know all the global hiding global men. You know every person that speaks several languages. You have them on the radar. You just put us on the radar now. So
The jig
it's
is
going to be
up.
harder for us now. Yes,
Time is up.
I cannot pretend that I'm a foreigner in China anymore because they've seen your group. They've seen this interview. Yes.
We're making this lighthearted in a beautiful way, but the truth
Yes.
is that your observation is very keen that hiding in plain sight is the art of navigating the complexity of the world. And we don't want to portray it in a negative way. There is no agenda here. This is just the the person trying to struggle against the dynamics that have been imposed exogenously. It's not our fault that the world is like this, but we hide in plain sight to thrive in complexity. We should take it positively, is my point.
Yeah. Yes, I think using the word hide may be too negative. I would say we blend in. We blend in everywhere. We don't want to stand out. And I think the ultimate way of learning a language is a language. When you master a language and a culture, it's when they think you're local.
That's
which
right.
means you no longer stand out and you'll blend in with everybody else. And that's what I meant by hiding in plain sight. You know, nobody
Absolutely.
needs to know.
Absolutely.
Let them find out. Let them find out. Keep some mystery. You know, catch people. I don't know if I hope you'll bring this up later on. You know, when's the last time you catch people talking about you? Because that's the best part about being hyper polyglot.
Bring it up, man. I bring it up now. When is the last time?
Okay. Well, there's this thing in I would say in China and Hong Kong where I think it's biological, but they are not, when they smell strong perfume or cologne, it really annoys them. Like it hurts them. Like I was reading about it. I'm not a scientist or anything, but I was reading an article about how they were built that, you know, a lot of times you see pictures of Asians closing their nose around foreigners. It's not because they have BO. It's because they have perfume or cologne, which is very strong to them. And the reason I'm bringing this up, I'm half Lebanese, you know, Arabs everywhere. We love our perfume. Oh, yeah. We love our perfume, not just because it's good, but also, you know, we're from the brown side of the world. You know, we have to cover. Yes. So
yeah, I feel you.
I wear perfume every day, and I have had instances where I'm in the elevator where somebody would say, oh my God, this gringo, and they're speaking in Cantonese. Oh my God, this gringo smells horrible. And I'll use the same perfume next day, and they're like, oh my God, this gringo is using the best, he smells amazing. And I've had instances where I was, when I moved to Michigan, and all my Michigan friends know this. When I moved to Michigan, Michigan has the highest population of Lebanese outside Lebanon.
Yes, Dearborn particularly.
I think, yes, Dearborn. So I was my first 2 weeks in Dearborn, and I was playing basketball at a local gym. And there's a lot of Lebanese people, and they somehow wanted to play full court, and we're playing 5-on-5. And it just happened that they made a Lebanese team versus a mixed team, you know, with everybody else, you know. So anyways, I was put in the mixed team because they didn't know. I was new there. And I had a really hearty Lebanese shawarma before the game. Big guy, I gotta eat before the game. And if you know a good Lebanese shawarma, there's a lot of garlic in that shawarma.
That's right.
I'm telling you, like whatever you think garlic is, we take it to another level. Like,
sure.
Like Lebanese people are the Michael Jordans of garlic in their food.
Yes.
So I had a garlic galore shawarma before the game, and all I could hear is the guy cursing me in Arabic. It was like, this Mexican guy is killing me with his garlic, with his breath. And I'm laughing, and I was killing him. And I just laugh because this is what I do. I want to hear the whole story. I'm laughing. He was like, "What is this? You know, Mexican." He keep calling me Mexican guy. Yeah. I had long hair back in the days, and I was darker. So, and this Lebanese guy just going in, and I was killing him on the court. So he was angry. He was trying to talk trash, but he was talking trash in Arabic to his friends. And one of his friends knows I speak Arabic, and he was just watching and laughing. And at the end, I just went up to him. I'm like, "Good game." And I told him in Arabic, I'm like, sorry about the garlic. You know, I had a shawarma before coming here." And he was so embarrassed. But we became good friends later, and that story went everywhere. Everybody knows. Watch out for that guy. He's a global guy. We caught him. We caught this guy.
It's the ninja in action.
That is, yeah. Brazil is the only place where people come up to me and expect me to speak Portuguese. That was before I learned the language. So I was never able to catch anybody. But I was able to catch people speaking Chinese because one time we were buying something from a Chinese store, me and my brother in Brazil. And we looked like locals because there are some like Brazil is a mix of, you have the indigenous people and then you have some Europeans. So some indigenous people, they have I would say Asian eyes. You know, they have
features like yours. Yes.
They have yes. We have certain features, and there's a lot of Brazilians with that features, and we fill in that category.
Mm-hmm.
And also because I dress a certain way, I wanted to blend in more. Mm-hmm. And the Chinese would talk about their prices because, you know, being you know, as you know, you're Asian too. You have that blood in you where you have to haggle the price. Like we will never accept. Yes, if there's no price tag, you know what? It's up for debate. It's $10. Is it really? Is it really? So I was buying. I forgot what it was, but I just remember the story. It was like, I think it was shoes or something. And I asked him, "What's the price?" And the lady looks back at, I'm assuming her husband at that time, and spoke in Mandarin. I said, "Okay, how much are we selling this?" And he was like, $50. And right away, I'm like, no, it's too expensive. And the lady go back and looks at her husband and was like, "Okay, he's saying too expensive. How much can we sell it for? How much lower?" And that was the funny part. The guy was like, "Okay, what's our cost?" And the lady was like, "Well, I think our cost is around $30. And then the guy was, "Okay, tell him 45." And me and my brother looked at each other. We started laughing. We're like, "Okay, this is what we're gonna offer you. We're businessmen, all right? We'll give you 10%. Your cost is $30. We'll pay you $33. And the lady looked at me. It was like, how? Like she was guessing. How did I get that number? It was very precise, you know. So at the end, I was like, "Look, I'm Chinese. I know you're speaking Chinese, and you know what? I know your costs already. How about this? You make $5 on it. You'll be happy. We'll be happy." And they're like, "Okay, cool." So it's a lot of stories like that. A lot of stories where, you know, you catch people talking. It's always fun to reveal. The revealing part is always nice. You know, like a ninja. Like a ninja. You reveal, "Haha, I'm hiding here."
But
yes.
It is so delightful to catch these stories. To some, I can relate very strongly. To others, less so. They're unique to you. And I think it's beautiful because you embody the polyglot experience so viscerally, so real. That's why what I'm really trying to say is that our chat today has probably been one of the most enjoyable among the HYPIA series, just because there is so much personal anecdote. It isn't so much, "Oh, how do you feel about the grammar of this language?" No, and certainly not a test of your Arabic or your Chinese. It's not that sort of thing. It's really, how does it feel to be that ninja? It's a discussion among two ninjas, basically. It's a confessions of the two ninjas.
Yes. I agree 100%. What ninja things you did today?
And so on this happy note, I do want to thank you for your precious time. I also want to propose a follow-up conversation because I feel like, well, this is the first time we're talking face-to-face. There is so much more to cover. At a later date of your convenience, we should have a follow-up conversation.
Oh, definitely. This was fun. The time flew by. What time? Oh, yeah. Oh, wow.
I think we've
Time
gone
flew
over
by.
whatever, but I haven't been keeping score just because it's been so delightful. And that's my appreciation to you.
Yes.
Thank you, Meher, for your time.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me.